Hello board gamers of the world, welcome to the Curious Box. It's Christmas time again and we have interviews and more interviews. I will tell you just some names. We had already Emerson Matsuoshi, and there is Orlando Sá, Pedro Pereira, Alan Kirby, Gil Doré, Pedro Oliveira, David Mendes, and today we have Bruno CATHALA, creator of Shadows over Camelot, Mr. Jack Pocket, King and Queen Domino, and so many other famous games that you have played for sure. I interviewed him a few months ago and via Skype, and it was such a great time. I really need to share it with you. Check it out. So, hi Bruno.
Hello.
Thanks a lot for being here at the Curious Box. It's a great honor for such a recent channel to have you as a guest. My first question is always the same. It's for you the same as I asked the other guests. How did you get started on the board game world?
As a gamer?
Yeah, as a gamer.
Okay. So when I was a child, we were playing games with my daughter, or my sister, sorry, and friends. But it was very classical games like Risiko, Clue, or Monopoly. I liked that, but it was not that exciting to me. But what I really loved at that time was more strategical games like chess. Or so two-player abstract games, chess, Go, Othello, that kind of thing. And then I became a student, and when I was a student, I discovered a French newspaper dedicated to games, which was named Jeux et Stratégie, Games and Strategy. And I discovered a world that I had no idea before. So it was so interesting that I bought my first game by subscription with this magazine. And this game was Fief, which is still released today. I bought the first edition in something like 1981 or 82, something like that. And it was something incredible. I had no idea that that kind of game could exist. And I discovered that there were game designers, because before that I was never thinking that some people were inventing that games. And this game was published because the game designer had won a game design contest. And I promised myself when I was 20 that one day I will do my own game. I had to participate to that contest, to win it, and to be published. And it was a promise that I made to myself when I was 20. But at that time, I had absolutely no idea how to build a game, how to create a game. And I was really involved in my job then later, with some responsibilities, etc. I was working in research and development in material sciences. And at the same time, I was also really involved in sport because I was playing rugby. And it took all my life. And I had just enough time to play, to buy games, to teach them to my friends, and just to stay in touch with modern games. And then in '99, things changed. I divorced, and at the same time I broke my knee. So that means that it was no more possible for me to play rugby anymore. And I was alone for some weekends. And during one of this weekend where I was alone, I decided that time I had to work on my first game. And I began to create my first game at this time.
What have you been studying at university?
I was studying material sciences.
And
So
you worked on your area before you started um, designing board games?
I've been engineer in R&D, in research and development for tungsten alloys for 18 years. And I began to create my first games as a hobby, aside for my job.
Okay, so that was going to be my next question.
Mm.
Describe me your first game.
My first game was named in French Sans foi ni loi, which means something like lawless.
Okay. Yeah.
Just because for me, when I started to work on it, I had no idea what I wanted really to do. The only thing I knew is what I wanted to build a game with a Western, Far West team. Just because it reminds me a lot of things from my childhood. That means that my parents were teachers, and we were not allowed to watch TV if we had to go to school on the next day. And there was only one day a week it was possible. And this day, very often, there were some Western on TV, and I was allowed to watch them with my father, which was a big fan of Westerns. So it's something special to me. And what I like in that kind of team is that everything is possible. You can add some magical things if you want. You can add some very wild things because it's a wild west, so it doesn't matter. So, and I like games where there is some direct interaction. So this kind of story was perfect to me. So I began to look for pictures which I could use into my games, and searching pictures on internet give me the ideas of the mechanism during that research, in fact. And all came at the same time, and after one weekend, in 2 days, I built my first prototype.
In 2 days?
Yeah.
You still have it?
Yeah.
Yeah? You play it?
But it has been published.
Ah, it's been published.
Yeah.
Ah, I didn't know.
My big chance is that my first prototype, it took me then some time, but 3 years later, I was published with that game.
Oh, amazing! With the first game.
Yeah.
Are you very connected to the story of the game, or you first decide the mechanics, and or you have an idea like for a mechanic, and then you think, okay, this could fit in some story, or how does your creative process works?
It depends. In fact, very often people who analyze game just analyze them in three categories. You have the team, the story, the components, and the mechanism.
Yeah.
But if you stay at that level, you miss the most important. Which is really important is the game experience you have. And the job of a game designer is to create a specific game experience. And the story, the mechanism, and the components are only tools. It's the tools of a game designer to create a game experience. And which is the most important for me, it's the game experience. And then I choose what I need with the story, the mechanism, and the components to build that game experience. So sometimes I will start from the mechanism, sometimes I will start from the story, sometimes I will start from the components. For example, Kingdomino, my first sparkling idea was I want to play with dominoes, but immediately, what do I want to create around the table? And this is the most important. The only thing which matters, in fact.
Can you think about, you still play a lot?
Yeah.
Can you think about a game right now, like this moment, can you think about a game that is like creating this experience for you as a gamer?
Um, Mare Nostrum, for example, building a civilization, fighting against the other, having some specific tension because I will take some risks, but I'm not sure that the other will not, etc., etc. It's something I really like in that kind of game. Even in abstract games, you have a specific game experience, for example, because you always try to have one step more in your mind than your opponent, etc. So the game experience can be very different. Sometimes you are very involved into a story. Sometimes it's more like a mathematical abstract fight, in fact, but it depends what you want to create. In such game like Codenames, for example, the game experience is incredible because you just want to know how you are in touch with your team, in fact, which is the same with The Mind, for example. The Mind, it's one game which is exceptional for that, for the game experience it creates.
How do you choose your next project? Is it your idea or some publisher's idea sometimes? Or you have already 3 or 4 ideas you're working on? Or
So first, it's never a publisher idea.
okay.
That means that I have never to work on command. In fact, I do what I want to do, and then I have to convict a publisher to follow me in that way. And then, yes, I have always a lot, some times. I'm working on several games at the
Yes,
same time.
yes.
More or less some from 10 to 12, 13, but they are not at the same stage. Some of them, for example, will be released in Essen, but they still need some work from me for some marketing point of view, to prepare things, etc. So it's still working. Some of them, I'm just working to try to convict a publisher that for me the game design is finished, but I need to find a publisher, and this takes me a lot of time. And some of them, I am in the development process. So that means that I build a prototype, I will play test it this evening, for example. For example, I have one there, I built this morning. And then, if it's good enough, I will have to make some iteration to make it better and better. And then, it will be good enough. I will try to go on to find publishers. And I have some just sparkling ideas. I'm just thinking on them, but I'm not really working on them. So all of this means 10 to 15 games at the same time. And the sparkling idea can come from me or from one of my co-designers, because as you know, I'm known for working a lot with co-designers.
Yes.
I make 1/3 of my games alone and 2/3 of my games with other designers.
I'm going to take that point for the next question. How did Seven Wonders Duel happen? Because you were not a designer for the original one.
No.
But then, as I understood, the first one was not. Even though we could play it only with 2 players, it wasn't perfect. So there came the idea to create Seven Wonders Duel. How did you get involved with this project?
So it's because of Antoine, Antoine Boza. So first, my story with Seven Wonders, the basic game, is special because one day I was coming back from my parents' house and I stopped on my trip just to say hello to Antoine, which was midway, in fact. And he introduced me as one early prototype of Seven Wonders. And as soon as I played it, I was really impressed. And I said to him, with these games, you will win some prize, some reward, I'm sure. frankly speaking, I was not thinking about Spiel, but I was quite sure that the game will be successful because it was so an evidence to me. And we made our first game, we were three around the table. And I say, I want to play a game. And he said me, but it's not possible because my wife has something else to do, so we are only two. But I said, I said him, but we will play just you and me. And he said, no, Bruno, it's not possible. It's not a game for two players. And I say, yes, it is. I say, no, it's my game. I know that we cannot play it up to, and I said it, I will show you how to play it with two players only. And we made a game. I adapt some rules, and we made a game together. And it convinced him that it was possible to play to the basic game at two players. In fact, his publisher was asking him that, and he was not convicted. But then he accepted that it was a possibility. So, but at the end, the rules which are inside the box are not the way we were playing together. It has been adapted another way, etc., etc. And at the end, it was okay with that rules, but not that happy with them. And he explained that he was really not shocked, but surprised that for him, he built that game to be a large multiplayer game. That's the reason why it's 7 wonders, because you can play up to 7 people. And for him, it was the best game experience the game experience he wanted to create is the one you have when you are playing at 6 or 7. I'm playing only it with my girlfriend. And it was not that happy with that because he knew that the game experience you have at 2 players with the basic game was not the game experience he wanted to create. It was not sufficient enough to him. And so he began to on a specific 2-player version of the game. And he didn't succeed. And one day we went to Gen Con together. And during the flight, he asked me, why Bruno, he explained me that, and he said, well, would you like to work with me on that topic? And he said, you know, Antoine, I have to think a lot before. So yes, I want. I accepted for sure. I accepted immediately because for me it was a gift. When you have, and one thing that he thought that maybe I was probably the good person to work on a 2-player game because I still made a lot of 2-player games before. And the other thing that he knew that at that time, it was not that easy for me on just financial point of view because winning your life only with royalties is not that easy if you don't have a major hit. And he offered me that possibility also to help me, which is very, very kind, for sure. And we worked together and we built 7 Wonders Duel that way. So it was his idea first, and he offered me to work with him on his major license, in fact.
Weren't you afraid at some point? Because since you are like touching someone else's work, weren't you maybe weren't you feeling an extra pressure? Or because he was your friend, and since you began talking about playing it with 2 players long time before, maybe you were more relaxed, no?
No, I had no pressure. I didn't feel any pressure from Antoine. But the only pressure we had both, it's that you know that 7 Wonders is a huge success. And as soon as we started to communicate that we were working on a 2-player version, people were really, really, how to say, enthusiastic.
Yeah.
And that means that they had very big uh, expectations for that. And for that kind of license, the more you have big expectations, the more you have a risk to create deception. And on such a license, creating a deception would have been really bad for all the license. So the pressure was really not me with Antoine. Not this relationship is very simple, very friendly, no problem. It was just we don't have to make something which creates deception because it could create some problems to all the license. That was the main risk, in fact.
And that brings me to my next question. After so many years creating so many classics as you created, don't you feel any pressure when you are creating a new game? Like, I mean, you have already a very well-known name, and of course, people are expecting only the best from you.
In fact, in my head, things are not that going that way. In fact, I'm not creating games because I need to create games for the market. I don't care. In fact, I'm just creating games because it's the games I want to play myself. Always. When I'm working on a new project, because it's exciting to me. And just because I want to play this one now. And it's quite a selfish attitude because I'm creating the games I want to play myself. And then I try to convince first a publisher and then players. But the pressure is not inside my head. It's sometimes now with the publishers because, these last years I've been lucky with some success like Five Tribes, Abyss, Seven Wonders Duel, Kingdomino, for example, and all these games have been sold very well, and some of them very, very well. And now when I come to a publisher with a small card game, which is really fun, but which is just a small card game, the publisher have more expectations to me, in fact. And this kind of game, I would have signed it very easily 5 years ago, and today it's just a little more difficult to me.
Yes, because they are demanding more from you.
Yeah.
It's a few weeks ago I was talking with a friend, and since you mentioned code names before, it's surprising that Vlada came with, after all his games, he came with code names. Yes, and it kept me thinking exactly on what you said, that it must have been when he presented this idea to a publisher, it must have been, it probably was a problem because the publisher was probably hoping for something, more complex. And
maybe yes, but for me, we don't have to think about the market as game designers. We just have to follow our feelings.
I totally agree with you.
Because if I observe the market today and I say, well, I should do that things because it just connected to the market. In fact, if I start a game now, it will be published in 2 years and a half.
Yes.
So it will be old-fashioned.
Yes, totally. Totally. If you could give some advices to, because right now there are many youngsters or trying to break through the board game world, designing their first games. There are a lot. You go online, you see lots of ideas, very interesting concepts, but as you also probably know, for sure it's not only about creating a good game. It should be, but it's not. Then you have to know how to sell it to a publisher. So if you, and for sure there are many, hopefully there are many of these youngsters watching this interview, and they for sure would appreciate an advice from an experienced person like you. So, what would you recommend for them as an advice to pitch a game?
My first advice, never mind if you are a beginner or a more experimented designer, it's take your time. There are so many games each month, each year on the market that there is no hurry to bring one new one now. That means, and you have, when you will meet a publisher, if you have a chance to meet him, you will have only one chance to be a first good impression. That means that you have to go only when you have more than 100% sure of what you want to show. If your development is not finished, even if you are really excited because you think you have a good idea, etc., etc., wait. Playtest, again. Make all the fine-tuning which is really needed. Take a lot of care to write a very good rule. Because the best game with the bad rules, people will think it's a bad game.
Yeah.
Okay? And then try to make just a very single sheet, not with all the rules, but with 1, 2, three things which are really important in your game, which make him different, just to create some excitation for the reader. You have to make some marketing of your own job, in fact. And then you send only that sheet to the publisher. If you manage to catch his attention, he will come to you and ask, can I read the rules? So then you sign the rules, which are perfect. He will say, oh, this is quite professional, in fact. Okay, and then he will call for a prototype. And I'm working that way, and I think that it's the best way to do.
Is there a dream project that you'd really like to do maybe one day, and for some reason you think now is impossible for, I don't know, for...
Yeah, I have some dreams, for sure. Because the day where I will have no dreams, I think that I will be dead, in fact. Yes, I could say that one day it will be a dream to me to build a game with Richard Garfield, for example, just because it's one of the people who opened my mind with his game design, definitively with Magic the Gathering. So, I would like to have the possibility to make a game in the Star Wars license. It will be a dream. And one other license I will really be interested in is it's a Dune from Frank Herbert.
Ooh. That's a challenge.
But for these three dreams, it's quite impossible.
No, it's I don't think it's impossible. I mean,
No, but it's not really easy.
no, it's not easy, that's for sure. But since so many games are being published now, and now we see a new trend of games adapted by movies, from movies. I've seen a few months ago the Rambo board game coming to Kickstarter, Highlander board game, Terminator. So sooner or later, and since, for example, for Dune, sci-fi games are now coming more and more
Yeah.
and more. So I think it's very likely that it can happen. You can dream. You can dream,
But
and
I am
sometimes
not
things come
starting.
true.
I'm not starting anything on that field. But yes, if I had the opportunity one day, it would be really a dream for me.
What's coming next? What's coming next from your side?
First, there is Essen in a few months. in a few weeks, in
In a
fact.
few weeks, yeah, a month.
In Essen, I will have some new games released. I will have Scarabia, which will be published by BRUNO.
Mm-hmm.
I have one box here. Scarabia.
Oh, nice. It's a very nice artwork.
Yeah. I will have also a small game published by a Russian publisher, Lifestyle, which will be Loser.
Yeah. Okay.
I will also have a game published by a Korean publisher, which will be named Magic Fold. Maybe you know the game Fold It.
No, no.
It's a game you fold some tissue to make things, and it will be a flying carpet race.
Okay.
So
Not. You don't have more?
sorry.
You already showed me. You already talked about 3 games.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3 games coming out now.
For just for Essen.
Just for Essen, 3 games.
Yes, and for before Essen, I have this one.
Before Essen. C'est pas faux.
C'est pas faux. Yes, and it will be released in 2 weeks in France. And next year, I will have Nagaraja with Hurricane. It's a 2-player, very nice 2-player games with Théo Rivière.
Oh, really, really nice.
Yeah, it's a Vincent Dutray for the artwork.
What kind of
And I will.
one?
Sorry?
What kind of game is this one?
It's the story feels like something like Indiana Jones. Each player is exploring a temple, and is looking for some relics, but 3 of them are cursed. And you win if you are the first to get 25 relic points.
Mm-hmm.
But the relics where you have the most points are cursed. And if at any time, if you have the 3 cursed relics, you lose. So it's a race between 2 players looking for relics, and with very nice and specific components, like for example this specific dice, 4-side dice.
Oh, really cool. Really,
Yeah,
really cool.
And you see that kind of components, etc. You build a temple, and you have yes, it's 2-player. It's half an hour. It's push your luck. And some card management. And yeah, I really like it. Yes, I'm quite confident that it will go. It will be okay.
Thank you, Bruno. It's
and at the end of
pleasure talking
next
to you.
year, I will have one more big game
Okay.
with Yellow, which I don't know the title yet, but it will have the same heaviness like 5 Tribes, I think.
All right. Perfect. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thanks so much for showing up on the Curious Box. It's a pleasure, a great pleasure for us, and I hope for our viewers too. I'll probably, for sure, we'll be seeing you in Essen, since I'm
I
going to
will
be
be
there.
there for sure.
Yeah. I'm going to be looking for you. Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure for me.
So how many games have you played done by Bruno CATHALA? For sure you have played some. I have played many. I hope you liked this interview. It was an amazing time with this great game designer. This holiday season, we have videos every single day. Every single day we have new interviews at the Curious Box. If you like this interview, and if you like all other interviews, like all of them, and share the content, subscribe the Curious Box to have access to all these great interviews, all these amazing videos. Again, it's Christmas time. gather your family, gather your friends around the table, because I'll be seeing you at a table next to you.